All right, Travis, we've picked our microphones, condenser microphones, whether they're on a stand in front of the choir or whether they're hanging from the ceiling, depending on whatever that particular church or choir needs. What are we going to do about mic placement? It's pretty critical where you put these microphones.
It is important where you put it. You want to be willing to move it around too and adjust once you get it placed. But as a general rule of thumb, I would suggest about 2 feet in front of the front row of your choir and about 2 feet above the head of the tallest row of your choir. So that'll change obviously slightly.
Right, depending on your configuration.
Exactly, and if you have some enormous people. So it's really important to try and, though, put that in a place where it's going to pick the choir up evenly. And this you can do visually, somewhat, because you can visually kind of see how far people are away from the mic and adjust it accordingly.
That's going to be quite a ways up there. I mean, that could be 10, 11 feet up in the air, depending on how your choir is configured, right? It
could easily be that far away.
So it's important to be able to have the right hanging mechanism in order to get it up there.
Yeah, you definitely want to think ahead and make sure that you have something that's capable of getting it where it needs to be.
So where would you point that microphone?
Well, there's different schools of thought, but as a general rule, I try to point the microphone right to the center mass of my choir. And if you kind of picture a 60-degree cone emanating from the microphone, you can kind of picture where the mic is going to pick up and where it's going to stop picking up.
So it's important to listen.
It is very important to cue up the microphones and headphones and make sure you're hearing all the vocalists, and if you're not, be willing to adjust the position of the microphone and be willing to take the time and maybe have somebody help you moving it around so that you're picking up everybody like you're intending to.
At Audix, we've traditionally said that once equidistance from the front row to the back row is achieved with the microphone, the mic should be pointed at or just above the mouth of the tallest singer in the back row, as shown in this illustration. This reinforces the balance of the equidistance you are attempting to achieve. Also in this illustration, you can clearly see that when miking just a 3-row choir, the microphone needs to be 10 feet in the air. This is due to the fact that a typical choir riser consists of 8-inch steps. 3 rows constitutes about 2 feet. Also, most choirs will have male singers in the back row, so in these cases you need to factor 6 feet for the back. Using the equidistance formula that Travis suggested of placing the microphones 2 feet in front of the front row and 2 feet taller than the tallest person in the back row, you can clearly see that the microphone is going to need to be about 10 feet in the air.
So how many microphones should we use?
Well, as a general rule of thumb, you want to use 1 microphone for about every 20 vocalists that you have.
Well, that's kind of surprising. You'd think you'd probably want to use more for 20 singers.
Yeah, you would, and miking a choir can typically be pretty counterintuitive. You figure if you just get lots of microphones and put them up there, you're going to have more sound, right?
You'd think so.
You would, but the thing that you end up doing is you create little hot spots, so you pick people up twice, and you end up introducing a lot of what's called comb filtering. So that's essentially just chunks of sound that aren't coming through in your mix because they're being eliminated by the way the mics interact with one another. So it's best to do it very simply and just have 1 mic for every 20 people because you get a much more even coverage and the microphones aren't interacting with each other, causing all these problems.
To review, when placing microphones, a good starting point is to put the microphone 2 feet in front of the front row of your choir and 2 feet higher than the tallest person in the back row. It's important to make sure that the microphone is equidistant from the front to the back vocalists. Travis recommends pointing the microphone into the center mass of the choir. Audix also suggests centering the mic and pointing it just above the mouth of the tallest person in the back row. Listen carefully to what your choir sounds like with the microphones to position them correctly for your situation. Use just 1 microphone for up to 20 vocalists. Less is more. Using more microphones can lead to phase cancellation and increased feedback issues.